Welcome back to episode 9 of the Closing Time Podcast. I'm Brian Prawl, and we have Travis Blayton with us as always. And today we have a special guest,
Pender with Blaire, Cato, Casterline, Pickering Casterline LLC.
It's a lot. It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
It is our favorite real estate law partner in our market. They're incredible to work with. So we're excited to have you here, Brew. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
You mentioned you had a birthday this month, right?
I did, yeah.
I remembered that birthday.
Certainly
Did Travis?
He did. He did not. I don't know. It said Palmetto Mortgage Group, but it had a handwritten note from Brian.
You went on that one.
He did.
And you've been practicing law for how long?
Since 1999. This went out. So.
And you had your own firm for a long time, and then merged with Blaire, Cato.
Yeah. So originally out of law school, went to work with my father-in-law. Later became me and my brother-in-law's Craig Law Firm. Did that for roughly 22 years. And in January of 2022, we merged with Blaire Cato at Blaire Cato Pickering Casterline at the time. At that time, the partners at Blaire Cato were Cynthia Blaire, Gary Pickering, and Rex Casterline. Rex unexpectedly passed away in that first year of our merger, so huge loss to not just our firm, but our community and the legal community. He was a phenomenal person, really good attorney. Blessed to be able to work with him for that short period. But now it's the four partners are myself, Cynthia, Gary, and Kevin.
And you guys have grown a lot, and you have more attorneys than that now, right? And offices everywhere.
Yeah, we're approaching. We have 9 offices officially open and running. Home base is here in the Midlands. We have our Columbia office. We have an office here in Lexington that we obviously share building with you guys. We have an office in Chapin, one in Camden as well, and that's kind of services our Midlands area. I have 3 upstate offices, one in Malden. That was one that was already part of Blaire Cato when we merged. So when the merger occurred, there were only 3 offices. There would have been the Columbia, the Lexington, and Malden. But since then, we've opened, like I said, the Chapin and Camden. We have a new office now opened in downtown Greenville. We also have one in Spartanburg, and we've recently opened one in Myrtle Beach and Sumter. So we have 9 total attorneys. I need a roster to kind of double check them all. I don't want to leave anybody out, but we're just under 90 employees firm-wide, roughly about 20 attorneys. Our specialty is transactional in the real estate practice, whether it be residential, commercial, development work, and a lot of ancillary services that kind of fall under that umbrella. We also have a probate and estate planning division that's headed up by Marshall Minton and her team, which is outstanding.
She's incredible.
She's phenomenal. In my career, a lot of what we do, y'all see it as well. A lot of folks start coming in, and as you do these transactions, their brain starts kind of firing, and they start looking at, okay, how do I want to hold ownership? How do I want this thing to pass in the event something happens? Because people hear just enough to be dangerous, although everybody hears, I want to avoid probate. And if you do things on the front end, you can create ownership, hold title in ways that you can bypass that process. But there's a lot of vehicles and different types of setups that we can, Marshall and her team can create and implement, whether it be trusts, LLCs.
Every single person that buys a house, at the very least, needs to have a will and testament set up. I am advising most people to get a trust if they fit into a box like that. And I'm actually in the process. This is a plug for Marshall. I'm in the process of setting up a trust with her right now. Her and her team are absolutely incredible to work with.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, over my career, she's as good as I've worked with. When you just combine the totality of her knowledge and her abilities to do things, and this extremely economic. Frankly, I've told her she ought to charge more for the service.
Just wait till I'm done. Let's put up her fees. I want to talk to you real quick about what you guys do, because you are one of the first people that I was aware of, your firm, that kind of revolutionized service levels coming from attorneys and making the closing day for somebody buying a house feel very special. Like, where did those ideas come from? What did you guys do? Talk about what you do in that scenario.
I'd love to take credit for it, but I can't. a lot of when we were considering the merger, one of the things Gary Pickering and I, one of my law partners, he and I got together, and what we both identified very quickly, there were things that Blaire Cato did extremely well that my prior practice, Kevin and I identified that we didn't. We probably didn't focus as much on the experience. Also, in addition to that, at the time, Blaire Cato was set up, and and Cynthia, this is kind of her wheelhouse, and she's as good as you'll find on understanding processes and being connected into the newest systems and things that would make the processes effective and efficient for the customer at the end of the day. So they did a phenomenal job there. Now, our firm, we were really good at relationships and had phenomenal staff. And so there was a lot of synergy when we looked to kind of bring the two together. We knew each other as people, liked each other. I mean, they were always a competitor of ours. We were direct competition for a lot of, so again, there was a lot of things that made sense in looking for that. But Gary's, his brain from a marketing standpoint and looking at those little things to make the experience, because really the closing, all the heavy lifting generally occurs prior to the closing. So the closing should be an enjoyable process. It should be a culmination of what y'all make look easy, and we try to make look easy, and the agents do a good job. So when you have good partners in that process, it really should be a seamless, from beginning to end. But you want that ending to be something that these folks will remember, and it starts with, like I said, your office space and the videos and just the little small touches.
I mean, I think that was. I've been on both sides of the transaction using the firm, from as a real estate agent and then as a lender. I think for me, I would say the number one thing I think is when, from the lending side, the paralegals matter. That communication, and knowing that when you throw the ball to them, they got it. They're going across the goal line with it. And Tara is amazing, and has always done a phenomenal job with that. And I think you add that. That's what y'all had originally, and then add what Blaire Cato does or has done and still does very well. I call it the dog and pony show at the end, right? That's what everybody remembers, is how everybody felt at the closing table. And y'all, developed your own branding around that closing time beer and waters and stuff like that. And there's a whole experience from when they walk into the office with, pictures and signs and all that stuff. And it's not, I tell attorneys across the state all the time that it is not just a walk in, sit down at a table, hear the boring hour spiel of all the documents and signing paperwork. And it has created a fantastic experience for our clients.
What's even more is that there's a lot of synergy in the way that you and I do business and the way that they do business, in that we're focusing both on the client, the person buying the house, and on the real estate agent. And so you guys, that's how you grow your business. I mean, your referral partners are like us. I mean, real estate agents are who you're referring you most of your clients, and same thing with us. And so you have to focus on them as well. Do you know how many transactions you guys close as a firm on a monthly basis?
On a monthly basis, probably 500 or 600
real estate transactions a month,
firm wide.
And of that, in this market, probably of the, say, 500, 400 of them are purchases.
Yeah.
And so
that may be higher than that right now, but
right.
Just with the.
And so you've got a lot of real estate agents that on both sides of the deal that you're having to satisfy and then end up marketing to. How did you guys develop that philosophy as far as, I'm focusing on realtors? So that's what you guys are kind of known for, at least on what we do, is like you do the big event that we're doing in February where you have 400 agents coming in, call it the summit. And you do all kinds of things. Like we just had a party here where we had 200 realtors come, and where did that come from?
Well, I and again, our firm is a focus for us now. And I probably coming out of the 2008, 9, 10, that era of the real estate industry, my focus shifted because prior to that point in time, it was heavily lender-driven based industry. Because of the financial changes that kind of came from that period of time, my focus kind of shifted, and I started really looking for realtors because from a repeat basis, they are probably in a better position because they are the tip of the spear in the transaction. They start the process. They're engaged with their customer. They're signing an agreement that kind of gets the ball rolling, even though there may be kind of a concurrent pre-approval process or a lender that's being worked with, but that most of the agents had the ability to help with recommendations, particularly for people that were coming into the market. That idea or concept and kind of identifying the folks that were really productive at what they did. And a lot of people, will start kind of mimicking the people that are good at what they do. Yep. I mean, you guys see it. We certainly see it.
It is the most sincere form of flattery.
It is. So, within maybe a brokerage or an office, if the top agent is starting to identify, us as a closing partner and you as a lending partner, what inevitably starts happening is some of the other folks that are really good agents that, maybe just starting out. Sometimes those newbies, in maybe 1 year, they may be here. The next year, they're now in a entirely different level. And you see it all the time. There's
law of attraction.
That's right. But again, what we started really emphasizing and focusing on, because again, from a financial standpoint, you guys, rates impact things. There are a lot of variables that start impacting when your customers are where they're engaged, and again, the agents just felt like they were kind of the tip for us, and so we emphasize that, we focus on that. Doesn't mean we don't also similarly focus on the lenders and like you guys here in our market. So because we're blessed to have some, certainly you guys are phenomenal, but for this area we have some really good local folks that, and again, we're trying to focus equally there, because there are times when our industry, like I said, when rates do improve or they drop and you start getting refinanced, that's not a realtor driven process because there's no realtor involved. You already have ownership taken care of. But from a focus standpoint, it's really focusing on the people that are really good at their jobs, or productive. A little bit of it's selfish. One, we're wanting to develop a relationship and create business, but the really good folks make life easier for my staff and the people that work with me. We have phenomenal people working for us. You mentioned some of our, a particular closer, but some of our closers. I mean, we have really good people that can do that stuff. But it certainly helps when we're working with your team, because y'all have great processes, great people, great procedures. Then you align that with these really top end, really good agents, the ones that are professionals at it, not moonlighting it, and that they dot all their I's, they cross all their T's. So we're trying to be the next vertical of that, where they can pass off to us that closing process and they really don't have to worry about anything.
We see it a lot because in South Carolina, you can choose any attorney that you want. You don't have to follow your realtor or your owner's recommendation. You have a right. You're signing a form that I have, all those things. But what we notice is if the client ends up choosing outside counsel that isn't somebody that the realtor works with or has a relationship with, or the lender, the process becomes clunkier. Like, there's something to the fact that if we do a lot of work together, like, the process is going to be more enjoyable and smoother for the client. And we don't push. It just is what it is. For the record, compliantly, you can choose whatever attorney you want, but there are advantages of working with who your agent or your lender has a good relationship with, because the back end staff, the closers, our processors, they have a synergy and things get done quicker.
I agree 100%. I mean, particularly probably our firm in particular, because a lot of our systems and our cooler closings, the way we do is really is it's a portal driven process. We're always available for the human touch. I had somebody very recently that get somebody they didn't like it. They wanted to literally come in the office, sit down, fill the paper. We can always do that. But in our systems, it's really geared towards mobility and efficiencies for people, because today it's really tough to, the closing itself. I mean, we get people, they don't hardly come to closings anymore. I mean, we're having people all over the United States, all over the world trying to coordinate documents. So it's, getting, it's a now world we live in, and things need to happen quickly. And I think in our systems, because of you guys being familiar agents, they're the ones that like it, because these really good agents, they're probably not dealing with just one set of clients. They've got 10, 15 of those going at any one given time. And they just need to know that there's processes and procedure and people in place that can take care of that component effectively and efficiently. And I think that's what we do really well. And I think it pairs well with your team and your company, because you guys are that way.
And so that leads me to a question that I just thought about. So we're already doing hybrid closings where it's not the 120 pages anymore that you have to sit down and go through and sign. It's down to, somewhere between 7 and 11 or 12 documents. Do you see our state going to a true electronic, like fully electronic, no wet signature type closing?
You can actually already do them. I mean, and we're set up to do them. The problem here, there's a couple of things. The hybrid version that you alluded to that you guys do, because you don't have to go through the same security stuff to do a completely in-person electronic, ours have to be in person. It can't be remote. So you have to be in person with the notary, and to go through the security parts of it, I think are still a little bit clunky. We were at one time when it first was enacted, I think it was 2 years ago when it came online, we were going to try to do all of our cash deals that way, because you didn't have as kind of the same reason, didn't have a lot of documents. So it should be, but frankly, when you did, like to do a cash closing on the buyer side, there's 5 documents. On the seller side, there's 8 to 10. I mean, so by the time you sign them and you did all the, logins and security clearance and the certifications, and you drag and get it all done, what's a 10-minute process was turning into a 30-minute process.
Gotcha.
So, again, I think if you're looking at it from an efficiency standpoint, like I said, I love the hybrid version y'all do. I mean, I would, if it were me in your shoes and even lenders, I would really market that, because again, I go back to one of the statements I made earlier. Most folks, when people come in my office and we're sitting down, I'll hear people joke, say, "Yeah, I thought this was going to take 2 or 3 hours." And my kind of, funny rebut to that is, like, if you hear more than 30, 45 minutes with me, you enjoying my company way too much.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know that I can get my wife or other people want to hang out with me that long. But so, our goal is, we don't want to rush the process, because we want it to be a fun experience. We want it to be a memorable experience, especially for your first time people doing it. But we also want it to be efficient with everybody's time, because again, we do a lot of closings. We need to be moving on to the next ones. Those agents and you as the lenders, you guys have things to do. These people that buy, most of them are leaving that place and they got movers en route to the house. I mean, so everybody's kind of on a clock, but the hybrid to me is demonstrated to be the most effective and efficient way, because a lot of the admin docs that don't have a lot of substance to them in that acquisition, that closing, for y'all to send it and they DocuSign, they'll click a button or two and they're all out the way. And now you're just really focusing on really your settlement statement, your promissory note, your disclosure, those 3 things, those documents that covers generally the entirety of the transaction. Y'all have heard me in there. And then, so you can really focus in on what's important and not get stuck.
Well, you maintain a personal touch and a celebratory type of closing environment, while minimizing it. It doesn't have to take an hour and a half. It takes 20, 30 minutes max. And so I agree. and we should market them. We do a poor job of marketing that. To me, it's just, that's what we do. Is that a big deal? But apparently a lot of people don't do that, and something that we should probably talk about more.
Yeah. Not everybody in I mean, I'm surprised the entire industry has not minimally gone to that.
I want to talk about, let me qualify this question by saying, clearly you have a lot of experience with real estate agents. You're doing 500 to 600 closings a month at your firm. What are a couple of things that you see winning agents doing that are separating themselves from all the other agents?
The ones that you can generally see it with the organization on the front end of it when it comes to us. The ones that seem to be doing extremely well. You see a lot of social content in that, and I think the ones that's an effective strategy. And we have some really, really good agents in our market. We're blessed. I mean, there's some heavy hitters that work here in the Midlands, but our state as well. I mean, we're, there are a lot of people trying to get here, and there are a lot of good folks that are, that are doing this thing the right way. But if you look, a lot of them have some administrative component on the front end that they seem to have. They're very organized. When those things come over to us for the first time, we even joked a little bit. It kind of blows my mind that if I think about it, what would help us on our end is when agents send over, I love when we get hey, here's the contract, here's the comp agreement, here's any addendums, here's identifying, here's your lender, here's buyer contact, here's what the purchase right, here's commit. I mean, they've got a system, much like we do and much like you do, where that intake to output, those folks just for some reason.
And that helps everybody. I agree. I see that a lot with the top producing agents that I work with in particular. When there's a ratified contract, everything's in one email. It details out who's the attorney, who's the paralegal, email addresses, phone numbers, lender, phone number, email address, both agents, all their contact information, and then everybody's put on one email. And so it's like the official, like everybody's on notice. We're going. Here's any information that you might need to do your job effectively. Now go.
Yep. And like I said, that to me, the ones you see it do well, there's just seems to be this insane amount of organization, and it's not shocking. I think the more organized you are, you tend to dot I's, cross T's.
Just the chicken or the egg? Is it the organization that makes the agent perform at a higher level, or is it that the higher performing agent just by nature is more organized? Like, could an unorganized agent who isn't producing become more organized and therefore increase their business as a result of that?
Absolutely.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, I think we all can improve at what we do, and whether it be an agent, us as an attorney in the office. I mean, I think the moment you quit learning or attempting to learn or get better, you'll start sliding backwards. I mean, we're constantly looking for ways to be more innovative, to improve our processes, to improve our efficiencies. I mean, we're constantly analyzing what we do, where there are breakdowns. I mean, we're human. We're certainly not perfect. We may not be everybody's cup of tea. I mean, that's okay. But I think when you look at the totality of it, with the experience of the attorneys we have, our paralegals, our support staff, our systems, our networks, our strategic office placements, and our coverage throughout the state and what we can offer, we start checking a lot of boxes. And I think, again, we're not satisfied. We're still wanting to try to look at opportunities to consistently grow and get better. And I think the really good agents, I think they're constantly shaping and reshaping themselves, and whether it's not necessarily recreating, but you look at the ones that are really good, they're always kind of a step ahead. They start coming up with the next little twist or touch, whether it's through social content or their internal systems and marketing and what they focus in on. And again, I see the same thing to the really good lenders like you guys. I mean, there's this constant, massaging of things and looking for opportunities just to be better.
Yeah. What are some issues that you've seen in the industry over the course of the year, and kind of go through a few of those?
Yeah, one of the things. I mean, obviously, this past year, and it's still kind of being worked out. Some is the changes to the contract and the negotiating of commissions and how those things are showing up. There's still a fair amount of inconsistency. I'm sure you guys are seeing it, between, what brokerages, how they want things to be shown and negotiated or to make them their way into the transaction. There's still some, with the associations that govern it, getting things kind of paired up. So again, right now we're still seeing a lot of this back and forth of, okay, do you put it in the contract and cover through transaction? Do you do your Form 120, seller comp? And then some people are still confused. I've seen people inadvertently have it in the contract and have a freestanding form and thinking they needed both for the same thing, when the reality is they were two different things.
So for any agents listening, what's the right way to do it?
I mean, I think, I don't know that there is one right. I mean, I think that both are equally effective. My big thing, the concern I've always had, if you're having a finance transaction, cash transactions are easy, because you don't have a lender issue with a minimum, contribution requirements and those things that you have to, depending on, loan type, underwriting guidelines that might have some impact. Because you guys saw it early on when it first came over. You negotiate in this massive seller paid transaction costs in the contract, and then you have something, the next subsection down, that of which X, maybe not all of it wasn't supposed to be, so it's supposed to be some differential.
X amount can go towards the commission.
Yep. And then all of a sudden you have a lender that's not maybe familiar or seeing what we're seeing here in this market come back and say, oh, that's too much, you can't have that much. And then it's like, well, okay, and let's look at the guidelines. The guidelines say any portion of that is going to cover commission shouldn't be counted towards, these minimum contribution, whatever that number is. So, my recommendation was, hey, listen, find somebody, a lender, make sure they understand the way you're going to write these if it's going to be that route. Now, if you use the Form 120, which is seller paying the comp to the brokers, no more broker to broker, although I had a conversation with someone today, and there's still some out there they're trying to do the broker to broker. It's not per se illegal, but it's strongly frowned upon. And I know South Carolina is moving directionally towards that being eliminated, because there's really no reason to do it. It just doesn't make any sense, particularly when you saw what happened through some of the litigation. Yeah. But that Form 120, that's a very clearly stated document. And based on your when you establish agency with your client, if it's mapped out, it's there.
Yep. And we started that practice early on, of, when we get a ratified contract from a real estate agent, we're asking for all the, agency documents and all that stuff, so that when we're disclosing to our borrowers, if they are paying any portion of the commission, it's on their initial loan disclosures, so they're seeing it, they know about it, they see the breakdown, and I think that's helped our agents learn how to structure it correctly and how to represent it and explain it correctly to the buyer, because that was one of the things I saw early on, is the buyer didn't necessarily understand how it was written.
That's right.
Well, and we're in a position where the CFPB has come out and indicated that they may start counting that against lenders. So if I get pushback sometimes still from buyer's agents when I'm saying, hey, let me see the comp agreement, let me see the buyer's agency, all the things. And they're like, what do you mean? I know how to do my job. Trust me, I'm not saying that you don't. What I'm trying to do is protect ourselves, because if the buyer is paying your commission out of pocket and I don't disclose that on the loan estimate to the buyer, at some point, maybe even now, the CFPB is going to come back and say, cool, that was an undisclosed fee. You have to eat it.
That's right.
Well, our revenue on these loans is about 150 basis points, 1.5%. If I got to pay a 2.5% or 3% commission to an agent,
Right.
I'm literally losing money before I pay the loan officer.
And it would be likely that if the CFPB did that, it would be effective immediately. It would be retroactively. Let's look back, and there would be mountains of issues if we had
So
not
for
started.
any agents, I'm not accusing you of not knowing your job. I'm trying to not file bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But yeah, make sure you don't get hauled in. I'm frankly, I'm a little surprised, particularly when you had this shift in the industry that it frankly is not some part of the disclosure. I mean, because it is. It could be.
It should be.
I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm shocked it's taking this long for that to kind of show up on your radar on the lending side of things. Because again, when the shift occurred, it's pretty significant, and you can have a scenario or situation where a fair chunk of money is being. I mean, again, it's still a lot of times it's being offset somewhere. You know,
Right.
whether it's negotiated, like I said, through a transaction, covering it through closing costs, or, you may have a partial Form 120 where the seller paying to the broker, but you could still, that typically we're seeing a lot of where it's only a portion of what the buyer's obligated to pay. And again, the only way for you to know that on the front end and do the analysis, you have to see what's the buyer agency agreement, what does it say? What's the cap? What's the max? Now they can always take less, but
Yeah.
what's the maximum exposure, and what's the offset? Maybe it's 100. Maybe it is that all of it, 3%, but more often than not, I mean, I would say probably 50% might be a little high, but I mean, upwards of that number, you're seeing the buyer pay some portion
Yep.
of that commission.
And that can affect financing side of things, because if we've verified a certain amount of assets to get to the closing table, and now we're adding $3, $4, $5, $6, $8,000 on top of that, we might have a financing issue then. And so, that's where having those conversations up front, knowing what's going on, can solve a lot of issues.
What are you seeing as far as, because the biggest fear from real estate agents when this litigation happened a year and a half ago now, was it August 24th?
Yeah.
Or something like that, almost a year and a half ago, was that they weren't going to get paid. They were going to, if the buyer had to pay it. But it seemed to me, at least what we're seeing, is that it's still customary and common in our market for the seller to pay at least a large portion of it. Have you seen any average realtor compensation go down? Have you seen it hold steady? Where are you at? Where are you seeing with that?
No, I mean, I just think it's required more on the front. And again, one of the, certainly what was intended from the litigation was to make the negotiation of it transparent.
Right.
Whereas before, it really wasn't. I mean, it was kind of accepted, customary to do it a particular way, and it was done. Everybody accepted it. Now it is being negotiated. I haven't heard it as much of late. I know on the front end, when it first came out, I'd spoken to some realtors, and folks were coming in. Most of the time it was folks coming in to our state, and they had obviously seen or heard or read things. And there was some pushback initially, particularly on maybe bigger ticket items, the higher the numbers, where folks were not accepting or comfortable signing up for maybe say 3% to the buyer's agent in fear of they were going to now go put an offer or place an offer in the seller, because they didn't know going into it. So you were signing agency, agreeing to something for which you really had no idea what the outcome was going to be
Right.
in your actual transaction. So a lot of folks had several agents come in, and they were like, "Yeah, client just said point blank, I'm not willing to pay you the 3. I'll agree to 2. I'm comfortable. If I got to pay 2, I'll pay 2, or 1.5, whatever they are." I hadn't heard as much of that of late. And again, as an agent, certainly hadn't heard a lot of anybody getting really beat up or losing, even if their client is now having to cover maybe, a 0.5% of it, or maybe even a full percent.
I mean, I think the agents that would have gotten beaten up over it are the ones that could not explain or articulate their value in the transaction. I think that's, we went through that big change when we had to start putting our fees and all that stuff on our disclosure forms. Is now it's exactly like you said, it's transparent, and we get questions, and we have to be able to articulate our value. And I think a lot of agents have leveled themselves up by being able to show these are all the things that I do to earn that commission.
That's right.
And so I think it's helped separate the good from the bad and made some of the bad better, I think.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk at all about builders and their contracts, or is that a little too controversial for this podcast?
My law partners does a pretty good job beating that drum. I will say this, we have a market. We have a lot of really good builders in this area.
So if anybody actually is still listening at this point, what I'm talking about is if you go to a national builder, a big national, most builders that are building not custom one-off homes, but are building neighborhood tract builders, their contracts have incentives for using their in-house lender, of which most of them own their own mortgage company, and most of them have other preferred vendor type of relationships with attorneys and other things like that. And they're willing to give you these incentives only if you use this lender, this attorney, whatever. And so that's specifically what I'm asking the attorney about. And I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I think it's bullshit. And I would love to hear somebody corroborate my opinion.
I'm inclined to agree with your statement. My thing is this: we talked about it a little earlier. I've always been a big believer. Customer, you get to choose your lender. You get to choose your counsel. You get to choose you have the opportunity in our state to choose somebody that you're comfortable with. And I believe that. I've had large relocation clients. I was on a call, this has been years ago. We had a transaction that went south because a buyer chose a different attorney, and there was an issue resulting in the funding of the transaction. And subsequent to all of that, got on the call. I was on a call with the CEO of the company, massive company. And they asked me point blank on the call. They were like, how could this be avoided in the future? I said, well, the only way I can assure you that this will never happen again is I would have to close the transaction. I said, because I know what we're doing from a reconciliation of accounts. I know we're following the rules. I know what the rules are, and we're not dispersing money unless I have all the money credited into my account under our good funds rule, and we're reconciling that. We're having third parties reconcile, so I know what's going on with me. I don't know. I can only assume if an attorney is showing up that they are, but I don't know. I don't know what their processes are. Same with us now. I know what our wire verification looks like. I know what we require for approvals and money going out and all those things. So in doing that, the CEO said, well, then we need to mandate every closing they have to use you and you, because we're vetting you. And I said, well, that's fine. I said, but in South Carolina, people have the right to choose. I said, and frankly, don't want to be part of a process where I'm forcing somebody to use me that doesn't want to use me. I want them to feel comfortable based on either what they know about me and my firm from a reputation standpoint, or they rely on a recommendation from you as a lender or the agent because we've had a relationship. Because a lot of folks, particularly people who are coming in from out of state, may not have those relationships, and they're going to rely on people they trust, and that's you and that's that agency. That's earlier when you asked. That's really kind of why because they're involved so early, these people are just looking for recommendations on who they trust. We're no different in our lives as well. My problem that I have with with the builders, as you described in these sets up, is I'm fine with negotiating, whatever the incentives. If it's more beneficial to the customer, the purchaser, to use lender X or attorney Y that's somehow connected or affiliated with the builder, fine, have at it. But where I have a massive problem is when that person decides not to, because they feel it's in their best interest to, have their own representation, where it's not the old Fox Garden hen house type scenario. Doesn't mean those attorneys aren't great and aren't good people, and I know they're going to do their jobs, but at the end of the day, if my client is the builder and the buyer, it's really hard to kind of, when you get into sticky situations, which inevitably happen, it's hard to start advising folks when you have that scenario. Where I have a problem is when those people then start getting penalized, where, okay, you don't use my attorney. If you choose your attorney now, I was going to pay this, but now you got to pay it. And, oh, by the way, now we're going to make you pay more on top of that. And, oh, by the way, you lose all this. Well, people say, well, they signed the contract. Yeah, sure. I guess if I put a proverbial gun to your head and said, hey, sign it. Or, hey, you lose 10 grand.
Yeah.
Or it's going to cost you 10 grand more. Whether however you want to word it, maybe it's semantics, but that's, now you're not letting someone freely choose what they believe may be in their best interest.
Where I get frustrated is where it's apparent that there's a pay for play kind of scenario. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything, for the record. But if I'm a builder and I own my mortgage company and I'm getting revenue from the mortgage when it closes, however that, I'm sure there's a legal loophole that they found to fit through there. But if you're only willing to pay somebody 10 grand or 15 grand as a client to buy my house, if they use this person who I'm getting revenue from, that doesn't sit right with me.
I agree.
And then you get a situation where that lender is, who's their client? Is it the client that they care about, or is it their referral source that they care about? And clearly we work for both of our people, but my loyalty, if I'm getting paid by you and you're referring my business, is to you, not to the person buying the house. And I feel like not everyone's bad. A lot of those people, like those companies, are great, but it seems like more people get screwed in those situations than if they were able to choose their own representation or as a lender.
And I had one recently where they informed all parties that they wanted to use us as their lender, and the selling side refused to sign the contract until their preferred lender ran and reviewed the loan application.
I don't even have a problem with that. Like if
I do.
Well, so from my perspective, if
I'm not going to sell you the house unless you're mandated.
So what they said was they can use
you.
you as long as my person confirms that you're pre-approved. Also, I don't really even have an issue with. It's a pain in the butt for the borrower. It's a pain in the ass for you. But that's a competition that I'm okay with. You can use me as a lender or you as a lender, as long as this person also confirms you're pre-approved, because I trust their opinion. I don't have an issue with that.
But saying they're not going to sign the contract unless their individual approves everything.
Well, that's defer to the attorney. Is that illegal or legal?
Well,
it is.
No, I don't think there's any illegality to it. Because you're still able to choose. And I'm like you. My thing is, as long as it's open to the consumer, where the consumer has the ability. But again, if you start looking at it, if there's one vertical that says, if you use the following, there's all these dangled concessions, there's all these economic benefits but if I go this route, I'm still buying your house, by the way. You market it as X, I'm willing to offer you X. I'm just going to use Travis instead of Brian, and I'm going to use Gary instead of Brew. The reality of it is, where I struggle with it is, why does the second vertical, all of a sudden, every concession goes away, or it dynamically changes.
You're right, and that's what I was saying.
But then it's also not just that. I've seen them in contracts where, all of a sudden, if you don't use my attorney, now you as the buyer pay deed stamps. Well, you all know that's not customary.
Right.
No, everything's negotiable. It's not illegal. to have it negotiated in the contract, but it's certainly not normal and customary. And then, oh, by the way, now you got to pay also, my attorney, X number of dollars. Again, not illegal, but certainly not customary. So
I think that's kind of where I was going in my situation is they had to give up $20,000 to $25,000
in addition
incentive.
to
And in addition, their lender still had to run it to verify that it was good, in addition to giving up all the incentive.
yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
if they're waiving all of that stuff, just leave them alone.
Well, listen, you get into it. We were talking about realtors, and there's I've met with some groups recently, and I know Gary, one of my law partners, he bangs this drum very loudly. These bonuses, and if you particularly you get bonus on top as you keep coming back. If you again focus back to what came out of that NAR litigation and that process, it's really difficult to imagine that, because I had an agent ask me this question. It's like, well, what if in my, when I'm establish an agency, if I just go ahead and write in that I can, in the forms give you the flexibility, put in bonus. I said, but how do you today, when we have no idea what house I'm going to go look at, or what I'm going to end up with, how are we going to agree today that I'm going to pay you $3, but you're now going to get whatever bonus if we end up with a builder? Because at that point in time, how are you as an agent working in my best interest? Because you're not at that point. I mean, we're all in the same boat. I mean, nobody's doing this for free. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy, particularly when I get to meet really good people, and the people that are grateful for what you, like I said, there's nothing I enjoy more than somebody, after a closing, you see a little tear, or they want to come hug you and say, just thank you, because you can tell they're grateful for what I did, what you did, what my team did, your team, the agent, all these people, they are grateful for what was done for them. So it makes it rewarding, but we all are doing it to make a living as well. But on that front end of things, if I go back, it's no different, whether somebody walks in and says, hey, I'm willing to pay you 2%. Well, then you go make an offer and you find out, well, there's another whole percent out there on the table. Well, human nature is, well, dang, I'd love to, how about I go back and amend and go up? Well, is that per se illegal? No, but I've like I told you, you're going to have a hard time explaining to someone that when 1% on $1 million deal, which is 10 grand, how does it help your client that you get another 10 grand, as much as we'd all love our partners to get paid, and they're worth it.
Yeah.
It's not that you're not worth it. It's just, how do you explain that you negotiated as to that additional 10 grand of money? Why didn't you just reduce the price? That'd be the first thing I'd do. Well, reduce the price. Or how about this? Let's use that 10 grand to cover all the closing costs to the max that it can be done. Maybe we can now get this out of the deal. Well, you go back to this whole builder world of things. How's that any different? At the end of the day, if you're going in and you're only willing to go down one path, and they are having that kind of control, because it becomes an adhesion contract, a process more than the contract. That you can't change that contract. It's, to your point, you sign it or you don't. You don't get it. Or, okay, you go this route, let's start whacking all this other stuff. Well, we see the customers and the public and the people I'd be hard pressed if you called me and said, hey, Prue, man, dude, I love you. Y'all the best. But shit, if I don't use Travis, man, I lose 10 grand. Yeah. You know what I'm gonna tell you? I'm like, damn, you're an idiot. Go that route. I mean, it now, as much as I would want to say, if I were, I have a strong opinion. I think it's great, and it doesn't happen at all in the new construction world, particularly the track side. Just, again, I think it would be beneficial to buyers to have representation early on. because those contracts are way different than our standard ones you see, whether it be the state or the CCRA version. There's a lot of stuff in there that gets glossed.
A lot of addendums and a lot of exhibits.
A lot of things get glossed over, and before you know it, things start stretching out. And what are your rights? And though you go, all of a sudden you look in the contract, and that was a one-way written document. It is really onerous on a lot of the consumers.
What we need to do is a whole nother episode specifically on this topic, because I feel like we could talk for another 2 hours, but I think we're out of time. Any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I think this was good. I think we certainly might need to add another episode on contract specific stuff and have Brew and those guys back and kind of walk through that stuff with us. But we appreciate you joining us. You're a dear friend to both of us. We've both known you for a long time. You're a hell of an attorney. I'd say that anybody listening, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I think I can speak for you too. If you're looking for closing attorney representation, estate planning, anything like that, as far as it comes with real estate, Blaire Cato is a one-stop shop. Fantastic group to use, and I'd recommend them to anybody.
100% top notch. We really do appreciate it, man.
Well, first, thank you guys for allowing me to be part of this. Really appreciate your friendships, what you do for our clients and our partnership with the firm, but makes it easier. You're better people. So I'm a big fan of not just people who are good at what they do, but being really good people. And, we try to do that as well. So, I mean,
maybe Travis will even remember in 11 months and 3 weeks that it's your birthday.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
got a fancy box over there.
There you go. Yeah. We'll drop a link below to y'all's website and direct contact information for you guys. And we'll look forward to next episode.
Have a great day, man.
All right. Thank you, guys.